am going to formally call this meeting to order at 8:38 p.m. Secretary Messessany, can you do roll call? Present. Treasurer Loren. Present. Treasurer Doyle. Senator Zachary. Present. Senator Burns. Senator Flanagan. Present. Senator Raimondi. Present. Senator Chenoweth. Here. Senator Robinson. Here. Senator Sutton. Here. Senator Barron. Present. Senator Westphal. Present. Senator Pisa. Senator Madera. Senator Vicari. Here. Senator Hudson. Present. Senator Lurch. Present. Senator Zaki. Present. Senator Jones. Here. Senator Kennedy.
Present.
Senator Rao. Present. Senator Nelson. Senator Pickle. Senator Shen.
Present.
Senator Brown. Here. Senator Bokenhoff. Present. Senator McMillan.
Here.
Senator Schneider. Here. Senator Cook.
Here.
Senator Bogacki. Rolls and call. Thank you, President Steinheiser. Moving on to forum of concerns. Are there any forum of concerns today? Seeing none, moving on to the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Senator McMillan. Is there a second? Seconded by Senator Behrens. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Agenda is approved. Moving on to senators' reports, just so you guys know, since this is our first in-person meeting for the semester, when we do reports, you guys can just go ahead and come, you raise your placard and you say, I have a report, or motion, right? Yes, okay. And then you guys can come up to the front and say your report and then go sit back down. So just so you know, that's how we do things in person since we've been doing things on Zoom for a while. So are there any senator reports? Yes, go ahead, Senator Chenoweth.
Hi guys, and everybody on Zoom. Just wanted to let you guys know that myself, Senator Behrens, and Senator Robb have started working on BP 008, which is aiming to improve student organization accessibility and accountability. And if anybody is interested in co-sponsoring that or getting comment privileges on the document to make suggestions, please shoot me an email and I would be more than happy to work with you guys on that, as would my other sponsors. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Senator Chenoweth. Are there any other senator reports? Yes, Senator Parizo.
Hi, everyone. Just a reminder that the food drive ends this Friday. We've already had over 200 items donated, so I think that's pretty great. Please encourage organizations to continue to donate in the last couple days of our drive. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Parizo. Are there any other senator reports? Seeing none, moving on to advisors' reports. President Padilla, would you like to come to the front of the room? All right.
Let me ask you this. Do you have any objection if I took off my mask, or I'll leave it up?
Okay, I'm fine with that.
Is everybody okay with that? Just so you can hear me, and since I think we're kind of socially distant. Okay. I don't spit a lot. Well, listen, if you told me I had to suit up, I would have suited up. Okay, because I think you guys are really rocking those suits pretty well. So I'm envious. But anyway, I want to thank you all for inviting me to the very first ever, at least this semester, in-person meeting. And this brings back a lot of memories for me because I was in student government in college, as well as in law school. I worked for the Latino Law Student Association back then, and did the same thing for Latinos at University of Toledo, and also been the law school at University of Michigan. The bottom line is I'm here because of you. I talk about my faith and how I like to put it in practice. this is how I put it into practice. I'm not a theologian. I can't tell you recite scripture by memory, but I think I know how to put my faith into practice. And the way I do that is by being here and serving as your president and working with great individuals like these guys. And it's amazing. I'm in my 8th week, and it's amazing what we've been through. My very first day, as you know, I had to put you in remote learning for 2 weeks. I was feeling really good that day. I thought, this is not a bad gig. And then when I come to the office, they tell me you have to talk to the COVID czar. And his face is ashen. And I couldn't figure how bad it could be. And then he told me how bad it could be. The irony of it is that was a blip. And thereafter, the numbers went down precipitously. And we also, then that leads us to wonder if those numbers were actually truly accurate, those test results. But we got through it. And I think it was meant for a reason, because it showed what you could do, what we could do together when faced with a challenge. And that's the thing that has struck me throughout my almost 8 weeks here, whether it be in COVID, whether it be in the enrollment situation where I cut loose my vice president, my interim vice president for enrollment management, 3 weeks in the job. And sometimes I thought I was kind of nuts for doing that. But it ended up being the right thing to do, because I had already had exposure to my team, the people who worked for him. And I saw that I was pretty much convinced that they could work on their own and come together. And they did. And they're really rocking it. They're bringing in numbers. Our numbers right now are ahead of what they were a year ago. And they're competing back and forth with what the numbers were 2 years ago. So I have every faith and confidence that we're going to do a good job come this fall. I'm also confident because, as you may know, we've hired a permanent new vice president for enrollment management, Brian O'Rourke. He comes from Los Angeles, Mount St. Mary's University, and he's been in enrollment management for 20 years. And he's full of hustle. He also has all the analytics down. And so I think he's going to be great. And he's even already, even though he's not on the job, still engaged in staff calls with my office over here to help us get ready for this fall. Now, I know for your graduating seniors, that may be the last thing on your mind, but for anybody else, that has to be very important. I know it's important to you too, because we're a tuition dependent, enrollment driven university, like a lot of other small private faith-based institutions. And we just live and die by our enrollment. And we've got to bring in those numbers every year in order to continue to grow and prosper. The one thing I would ask of you all is, as I said at town hall with the university my second week, it's all hands on deck. And if you got a little brother back home, if you got a cousin, if you have a family friend who you think might be great, this might be a great school for them, we need all the help we can get to get them here, because you're our walking, talking ambassadors to how great this university is. The mere fact that you all suited up today, they tell me it might be for me, and then I did this. So I really feel like a dope about it now. But this just shows me something about your character and how seriously you take all this, and you should. You've got to fit the role that you're in. I've tried to do some of that over the course of my career, and I think you may know my bio, but I will tell you that in addition to where I went to school, I think the thing that formed me the most in my career it's kind of akin to what you're doing now. When I worked in Washington, D.C. for almost 8 years. I worked for 3 years in the United States Senate for a guy by the name of Lloyd Bentsen of Texas, who was the running mate for Michael Dukakis on the Democratic ticket in 1988. You may know him from sound clips where he told Dan Quayle, "You're no JFK. You're no John F. Kennedy." I worked for him for 3 years, and it was probably one of the greatest experiences I ever had in my life, because I advised him on Clarence Thomas, who's on the Supreme Court. I advised him on that vote. I advised him on the vote for Justice David Souter, who's no longer on the court. You've heard the Family and Medical Leave Act, the Americans with Disabilities Act. That became law when I was there advising Senator Bentsen on those issues. And And those are things that you may take for granted then, but now, back then, it was just, it was a fight. And we got it done. I also there acquired my interest in higher education because one of the things I advised Senator Benson was on higher education. I advised him on the reauthorization of the Higher Education Act in 1965. From there, I went into the Clinton administration for 4 years as a political appointee at the U.S. Customs Service, which at that point in time was part of the U.S. Treasury Department. I was Assistant Commissioner for Congressional Public Affairs. Now, what that really meant was I had a team of about 35 people who we were basically the lobbyists for the Customs Service and by extension, our parent agency, the Treasury Department. And we worked, I was back and forth on Capitol Hill lobbying on behalf of the Customs Service and the Treasury Department, and in a bigger way, the Clinton administration. And I did that for 4 years. And one of the things that taught me from that experience was the value of bipartisanship and trying to break down, to try to find common ground in a polarized society. And I'll tell you why. If you go back in history and look what happened in 1994, I was like completed my first year in the administration. At that point in time, the Congress was controlled by the Democrats, had been controlled by the Democrats, at least in the House side, for like 40 years. And had been controlled in the Senate, the Democrats controlled the Senate since the early 80s, or maybe mid 80s. Well, in 1994, there was the Republican Revolution led by Newt Gingrich, who you may have heard, and the House and the Senate flipped to Republican control. Now think how hard that is. Here I am, a Democratic political appointee representing a Democratic administration led by Bill Clinton with all his baggage. And I had to go back and forth and beg a Republican Congress to provide the funding to the U.S. Customs Service to enact its various missions, one of which was drug interdiction at the border, the processing of international trade worldwide. I had to do all that with the Republican-controlled Congress. And so what did I do? Did I sacrifice my values? Did I pander to them? No. I had to make arguments, compelling arguments on why it was in their interest to meet with Democrats to make sure that we had tough and fortified borders, that we had fair trade with predator countries or countries that were trying to basically dump their products into the United States to the adverse impact of our manufacturers. I had to make compelling arguments to people who, didn't have my same political philosophy. And I did it. And even got to the point where there was a lot of times, if you study political science, you talk about these earth-shattering laws like the Higher Education Act of 1965 or Family Medical Leave. But what people fail to ignore, there is a lot of legislating done under the radar, which may be as important, if not more important, than what we call authorizing legislation. And that's appropriations. Because remember this, if you pass an authorizing bill, it's meaningless unless they fund it. And the appropriators are the one that fund it. Customs Service can't do its job unless they receive every year the funding from the appropriators on both the House and the Senate side. And that was so important to us. And it got to the point where I think I developed enough of a relationship, it may not be politically correct, but the chairman of the House Appropriations Committee that authorized this was a guy by the name of Jim Lightfoot from Iowa. And we called him, when you're a chairman, you call him Chairman Lightfoot. Chairman Lightfoot and I may have disagreed on a lot of things, but for whatever reason, we got along. And he used to always call me amigo when I come by, because I was always up on Capitol Hill begging for money from my agency. That was how they measured my success. They could care less that I worked on behalf of the administration for China Most Favored Nation status, or I also helped lobbied on the NAFTA. What my agency measured my success and how much money I brought to them every year. And Chairman Lightfoot and I got along. Now, fast forward now. And if you're a student of political science and the way the Capitol is in Washington is working right now, I thought it was bad back in the early 90s or maybe late 90s. It's nothing like that. I mean, it was like we were kumbaya back then than what it is now. And I share that with you because Senator Benson taught me something that was this: nothing worth a damn. Nothing is ever worth a damn unless it's done with bipartisan consent. So for example, if you look at Obamacare, it hangs by a thread every year, right? And the only reason it survived is because of the filibuster. The Democrats, what's ironic now, the Democrats want to get rid of the filibuster, and I understand that, but what saved Obamacare was the filibuster when the tables were turned. When the tables were turned, you had a different administration and so forth. So what's bad about that, Obamacare is great, but depending who controls the Congress or who controls 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, you know, that dictates whether or not great legislation just goes to hell. And even Judge Ruth Bader Ginsburg said one time, somewhat controversially, and nobody could ever question her feminist credentials. She thinks Roe versus Wade, that Supreme Court decision was the wrong, it was ahead of its time because it was done too quickly without bipartisan support. Because as you know, it's under attack every time. Now, you know, it depends whether you agree with it or not. I'm not questioning that. That's putting that aside, but you can look at other examples where because it wasn't done with bipartisan support, it's not long lasting, not sustaining over time. And it's therefore always in the eye of the storm. And that's no way to survive as a country. So why am I telling you this? You've had some fights lately, YAF. I'm going to be honest with you. I agree with the decision she made. I vehemently disagree with her underlying principles. Vehemently. I vehemently disagreed with young Republicans at DePaul University, where I was for 15 years, when they opposed affirmative action. And they had what they called an affirmative action bake sale in our student union, where they were selling cookies and muffins at less cost to persons of color than the white people. The organizations, students of color, were upset. And they wanted us to kick the Republicans out or discipline them. And I took the position, as I do with YAF. Well, first of all, I would tell them, do you think they're smarter than you? Are you scared of them? Don't you think you can defend your own ideals, your own principles? You know, universities, and I don't want to sound patronizing, universities are nice, safe places insofar as we can have debates and Steve and Ryan get to play and I get to play umpire. But once you leave here, there's nobody going to play umpire. It's every man or woman for himself and how one articulates his values and his principles and defends those in the court of public opinion. So to me, even though there may be people who seek recognition with whom you disagree, whatever the subject, whether it's on the right side, the left side, in the middle, whatever the case may be, you have got to learn how to talk to them and argue with them and debate with them. Because again, nobody's going to be there to protect you once you leave here. And to me, you're Valpo, you're soon going to be Valpo alums. And I don't think we will have done our job if we don't teach you how to stand up for yourself and articulate your principles without throwing punches, without resorting to name calling, because that's not what we do in a civilized society. And I like to think that you can do that. I know you can do that. So I'm sharing that with you because whether it be YAF or the anti-affirmative action people at DePaul, universities are supposed to be incubators for debate and deliberation, because this is the chance for us to do it and for you to learn how to do that. And while you're here, let's do it. I debated somebody at the University of Chicago Law School who opposed affirmative action in front of, a bunch of law students who were on both sides of the issue. And I had a great time doing it because I'm a beneficiary of affirmative action. I don't know. I mean, I know it helped when I got into the University of Michigan Law School that I was Latino, and I'm not ashamed to say that. Because once I got in, I had to fight and earn every grade I had. But so I'm not ashamed of that though, because I earned it on my own, but I feel good about that. And I worked on behalf of the University of Michigan in its affirmative action cases in 2003 before the US Supreme Court, the Grass and Grutter cases. Read those one day. You don't need to be a lawyer to read them. It's enlightening. And affirmative action is Sandra Day O'Connor, in her opinion, she was the one who wrote the opinion, said that affirmative action will probably be done in 25 years. That was 2003. Already, affirmative action has been under attack, and gone before the Supreme Court in 2 other cases in the Texas cases. And think about it. Under O'Connor's read, affirmative action is going to be done by 2028. I think there's a good chance the Supreme Court's going to overrule it and break down affirmative action even sooner than that. But that's just the way it is because that's the rule of law. I hope they don't do that, and I'll do everything in my power to support that because I think it's a good thing. But even when people come in this campus and oppose that, I think they have the right to come and oppose it. But they don't get a free pass. Groups like YF don't get a free pass. Now they have to defend what they believe in. And now they have to hear the arguments of folks like you who disagree with them, if you do. Maybe you don't. But so it's not a one-way street. You want to play the game, you're going to have to play by the game's rules, and you're going to have opponents in a civilized way. So I'm telling you this because I think right now, I'm an old man and I see the way the country has gone since when I was in the Senate over almost 30 years ago. And I think the country has gone downhill by the extent that we're so polarized anymore. I don't know if there's any way to get out of it, to be honest with you, because we don't have social media where people can retreat to their respective corners and never have to talk to each other. You can just continue to watch Fox News if that's what you want to do, or me, to be honest with you, I watch MSNBC or CNN. I don't watch Fox News. I probably should. But I know that we have to talk to each other. And I think the hope for that is in you. It's you. And that's why I'm here. So in any event, I'll stop my little soapbox. You've given me the soapbox, so you're stuck with it. But again, thank you for inviting me. And I look forward. How many of you are still going to be around next year? Okay, we'll have some fun. We'll have some good debates. Any event, I'm done. If you want.
Yeah, is it okay if you answer a few questions?
Of course.
All right, we have time for like 2 or 3 questions. So if someone who had prepared a question beforehand wants to ask it, you may do that right now.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Senator Behrens, or Sophia Behrens. My question is, do you have an idea of what next semester will look like, especially pertaining to classes? Will it be mostly in person? Will it be a combination again? Will it be mostly hybrid, etc.?
We're going to be open for business next fall. And if I have anything to do about it, it's going to be completely in person. Now, I will tell you this right now. I think it's a reality for COVID or no COVID, everything's going to be to a certain degree hybrid. I mean, at DePaul, before COVID, so many classes were hybrid. I mean, they met mostly in person, but they always had a hybrid component to it. Now, the one thing I'm probably going to do, and maybe you can give me some advice and counsel and see what you think. I'm about this close to requiring that all students have vaccines when they come back in the fall. The only thing that has stopped me temporarily is because of J&J, okay? Because I want to see what the ramifications of that are. Now, I think we're going to hear from the FDA this week about that. And the only reason that gives me pause is because I recognize a lot of you, if you do get vaccinated, it'll probably be J&J and not, the two-step thing with Pfizer and Moderna. But what would you think would be the reaction to that if I did require vaccination? And if I do, by the way, it's going to be everybody on campus, faculty, staff, and all that.
Hi, I'm Genevieve Brown. I think the main thing is that you can't require it before it's FDA approved. That will be backlash on all the vaccines. I know the same thing, it's like, well, which one's more valid? Because if people get the Johnson, some people are saying that the Johnson one, let's say it's not working, or there's the risk still blood clots or whatever else comes up, then that'll become a problem within itself, because the people will be like, well, I have this one, which is better than this one. But really, my main thing is, I don't think you can have it, require it before it's FDA approved. I don't think it's legal either.
Well, it is legal. It is legal. I've had my general counsel take a look at it. I'm not arguing with you, though, in the sense that it is a legitimate issue. You raise a legitimate issue. And there have been a lot of webinars. I used to belong to a group called the National Association of College and University Attorneys, because I was a university attorney. And they've gone the pros and cons. Long story short, they cited it's not going to be illegal per se, but, it's not illegal, but it's not risk-free. It's not risk-free. So that will be an issue, and you raised a good one. But I think, I feel in one respect, I'm worried about the public health of my students and my faculty and staff. And given the fact that there are variants out there that, for example, only about an hour away is kicking the butt of the state of Michigan, I think it's better to in the law, law is never black and white. It's never black and white. It's always shades of gray, and you just got to figure out what kind of risk are you willing to take. But it's a good issue that you raise. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, my name is Glenn. I actually think that's a wonderful idea. I'm in full support of having everybody on campus vaccinated. I'm a senior, so I'm obviously graduating, but for the campus's health and safety, I think that it'd be really wise to have everybody vaccinated. I personally know that there are friends of mine who don't take COVID precautions as seriously as I do, and so that has really affected how safe I feel on campus. And so for everybody else, because I can't control everybody around me, I think it would be really wise to have
But, and I agree too, but I just want you to know that this is, these guys can testify. About a month ago, I was thinking about that, but there are complexities, and that's what's made me drag this out a little bit, because I'm worried about that. But I'm coming to this point where I'm more and more convinced it's the right thing to do, but I want to hear from the FDA. Whoa, Tiger. Can I go here? Because you've already had a chance. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Senator Ramon. And one of the things I would like to caution you against, I guess in my personal opinion, is going for compromises. I think this is kind of something we can't really compromise with. Like we have a percentage or like a goal maybe. I can see that maybe as being like the next best thing, but if we have, say, like 95% of the student body and faculty that are vaccinated, there is like a certain percentage of those people that are not taking these precautions that are likely the ones that aren't wearing masks in residence halls or aren't taking these extra precautions to disinfect their hands or clean their faces afterwards. And it's just unfortunate that there always is that percentage of people. So I do very strongly agree with what Senator Holtzman is saying. Like, this is something that I think would be very, very beneficial, like for the long-term stability of the next academic year. So.
By the way, we will have exceptions for medical or also religious grounds, by the way, just so you know. Who is next? So, go ahead. Somebody was over here too. Is that you? Okay, go. You go. You, and then you. How's that? If we have time.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
I want to offer a counterpoint. I don't think we should require vaccines. I don't think it's necessary. So look at it a few months from now, a lot of people who are eager to get vaccines or maybe on the fence are probably already going to be vaccinated. And people who don't are going to be very vehemently against it, and they're probably going to put up a fight. I don't think that fight is worth having if we look at our numbers now, how our numbers have been. I think compared to a lot of other universities our size, we're doing pretty good. So I would say it's not worth the fight and the trouble that you're gonna get out of it. Maybe run a survey over the summer and see what number, like early in the summer, see what number of students are vaccinated and make a better informed decision later, especially after we've had time to see how vaccination rollout goes. I wouldn't do it soon. I think it's not a fight worth having.
Let me make the counterpoint to you. I may not have to convince you all, but I've got 600 to 750 freshmen coming on campus who don't have your, no offense to them, don't have your maturity, don't have your judgment yet, don't have your sense of proportion yet. So that what gives me pause, but everybody's making here legitimate arguments. That's the distinction I see. I don't worry about you, I worry about them.
Okay, hi, I'm Emily Backley. My question about making vaccines mandatory would just be, how do you think that would impact like campus finances as a whole? Like, do you think there would be a wide backlash of people pulling out of Valpo or anything like that? Like, is there any real way to measure like finances in that and how that would affect that?
I don't think so. I've consulted my enrollment management folks, and in fact, this new person is coming on board. And at worst, it's a wash. And in fact, in some respects, I've been meeting with new admitted students, and we're trying to convince them to deposit. And so they're obviously bringing mom and dad along, and I've asked them as well. So far, I haven't heard anybody say, don't do it. They see it as a selling point. But I'm sure there are others who disagree. But so far, based on the my anecdotal evidence is that it wouldn't be adverse. What's a tough one?
We can have one more answer and then we're gonna wrap it up.
Sure. Go ahead. Did I miss somebody over here though?
Yeah, well, my question is pretty similar to Senator Backley, so if you have a different one, go ahead.
Yes, Sophia Barons again. So my only point is like, based on what I've heard from my constituents in this past year, I'm in favor of requiring the vaccine. I think it would create a more comfortable and like, from a health, like public health point, like safer campus life. And I also I'm thinking about we already require vaccines as a university to come here every year. So based on the science that we've seen with the COVID vaccines right now, I don't see a large difference between those.
Okay. Thank you very much. And can I stick around or
Yeah,
do you want me
of
to go?
course. No, you can stick around.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for your questions and your wonderful discussion. And thank you, President Padilla, for being here today. All right. I did skip advisors reports. Advisors, do you have any reports for us tonight? No? Okay, no report. All right. Seeing none, we can move on to officer reports. President Steinheiser.
Hello, everybody. So good to see you all in person. It's very good to be back in the ballrooms and not on Zoom. Really quickly, to start off my report, can we just give Senator Parizo a round of applause? 200 food items. That is amazing in the Senate office. That is so great, especially with COVID, with not as many people going through the union and everything. Allison, excellent job with that. And to the rest of the Food Access Committee, your guys' work really does matter. And it was also featured on Valpo's social media. So we are Valpo famous as usual. The second thing on my report, so there was an issue with tier 1 budgets. I worked it out with Treasurer Lorenz and Senator Parizo. We were $1,400 over budget. And the reason why is because the Google Sheet lagged in the middle of the meeting. So as we were pulling from the pot was not showing all of the reductions that were coming out of it. To resolve this issue and reconcile the deficit, it's going to be up to the executive board over the summer to look at our discretionary funds and move money from that line into the tier 1 budget line. So all in all, we're totally fine. This is figured out. However, and I understand this meeting was on Zoom, it really is up to the senators to watch the pot during those meetings. That's up to you guys. That's not the executive board. It's not really our job to manage budgets as it goes on. And the finance chair can only do so much to watch what's happening to the tier 1 budgets, as with the finance secretary who's writing everything down. If you guys are watching the pot and you notice that number is not going down, that's a point of order right away. So in the future, I know a lot of you guys plan on running for Student Senate again. Just keep that in mind and really take ownership of your role as a student senator. It's up to you to do points of inquiry. It's up to you to do points of order. And this is it's a good learning situation for you guys in the future. Does anybody have any questions or points of inquiry about that? All right, moving on to the third point in my report. Jolie and I went to the Campus Life Board of Directors Committee meeting the other day. It was a pretty standard meeting. We just talked about all the legislation that Student Senate has passed since the last meeting. And I mentioned the veto in there as well. For my report for that meeting, I specifically wanted to focus on our organizational management that we've done over this semester, because I really do think that that's a key focus of what Student Senate has accomplished. With YAF, we had a really good conversation about dialoguing across our differences, and the board members seemed to appreciate that. They were really excited to hear about student organizations, actually. I think they're a little bit nostalgic. And I also told them about our stipends and the stipend proposals that we passed about setting not only a minimum wage for student organization leaders, but raising our own stipends as well. They were surprised to hear we got paid. Yeah, believe it or not. But all in all, I think they were supportive of what we're doing, and that constitutional amendment we passed over the summer to give us a communication channel with the board, incredibly helpful. I'm really happy that we did that. Does anybody have any other questions about the Board of Directors meeting? Any questions for me in general about anything? All right, and report, thank you.
Thank you, President Steinheiser. Moving on to my report. Now that we're back in person, I'm going to try my best to learn your names. I'm going to write out a seating chart and try to memorize it. So I apologize if I can't remember your last name. I'm just learning as you all are. So yes, that's the only thing I have to report on. Moving on to Secretary Missessini. Moving on to PRC Grimpy.
Hello, everyone. Just really quickly want to let you guys know that the food drive is still going on. I know Senator Parizo mentioned it during her senator's report, but if you guys could please just post and share it on all your social medias, that'd be very helpful. I've created 2 graphics that are on our socials. Also, the elections day is coming up. That is not this week, but it'll be next week. So if you guys could please post and share that as well. I will be posting a bunch of different graphics for that this upcoming week. And then also, for those of you who were senators last semester, I had scheduled I had reserved rooms in the SOS for us to do committee meetings for the hour and a half before the General Assembly meetings tonight. Those are back up. There's only one room now that is ours. It is the one that's directly next to the Student Senate office. So you guys can use that from the hours of 7 o'clock till 8:30. So if there's no questions, and that's the end of my report.
Thank you, PRC Grimpy. Moving on to Executive Treasurer Lorenz.
Hello, everyone. Just 2 quick things. Tier 1 stipends for this quarter are due on Friday, April 30th, and the last day to submit encumbrance requests is going to be Friday, May 7th. That is all I had. So if there are no questions, that is the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Treasurer Lorenz. Moving on to committee reports, Executive Committee President Steinheiser.
I didn't ask this during the executive committee meeting because I wanted to bring it to the full Senate. Do you guys have any feelings about holding e-board online or in person? Would more senators attend if it was in person? How are you guys feeling about that? Any strong feelings? Okay, well, Secretary Missessini, speaking out of order, said that we should have it said that we should have it online. Are you guys cool with that? Just a general head nod? All right, cool. End report.
Thank you, President Steinheiser. Moving on to Finance Committee, Senator Parizo.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to echo Treasurer Lorenz and saying that the fourth quarter stipends will be due April 30th. And then also thank you all so much for getting through the budgeting season and for making, good motions and listening to the forum of concerns. And I know we had a little snafu at the very end, but I still think you guys did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Parizo. Moving on to Administration Committee, Senator Chenoweth. Moving on to Committee on Media, Senator Behrens.
Hi, everyone. So we have a transition meeting this Friday for incoming and outgoing media heads. And then if you know anyone who is not on Student Senate but would like to serve on Committee on Media as a voting member even, please let me or Senator Bakri know so we can get them through the screenings committee this semester. Thank you. End report.
Thank you, Senator Behrens. Moving on to the Screening Committee, Senator Bakri. All right. Moving on to Committee on Residents, Senator Burns. All right. Moving on to Dining Services Committee, Senator Robinson.
Just real quick, just want to let everyone know that our last meeting will be April 30th, so 2 weeks from Friday. Chris and I will be working on the final dining statement for the year that will also be going out on the 30th. So if you guys have any questions or anything you would like in that report, just send me an email and report.
Thank you, Senator Robinson. Moving on to Diversity and Inclusion Committee, Senator Shen. Moving on to Discretionary Funds Committee, Senator Huxtable. Moving on to Discount Card Committee, Senator Jones.
No report.
Moving on to Elections Committee, Senator Lurch.
Hey guys, so Chris already kind of touched on this, but tomorrow all the signatures are due. If you or any other candidates who are running, just remember they're doing the SOS by 10 p.m. You can print the copy off and bring it to me. I know some students have been collecting half virtual and half physical. That's totally okay. If you want to email the virtual signatures to me, you can email them at elections.studentsenate@valpo.edu. But it does make my life a little easier if you print it off. That way I don't have half your signatures online. But if you can't do that, that's okay. And then another reminder is that formal campaigning, which is any sort of written text, does not start until this Wednesday afternoon. And so just keep that in mind tomorrow. I know you don't really have that much left to go, but just make sure you're not violating any election rules. So. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, and report.
Thank you, Senator Lurch. Moving on to new business. Seeing none, moving on to old business. I'm going to go ahead and pull up our bylaw proposal that we brought up last week. On screen. This is bylaw proposal 006. Would the senators who sponsored this bylaw proposal, do you guys want to come up to the front? And if people have questions, they can ask you. So we're not reading it again. You guys can look over it really quickly. And if you guys have questions, please ask them now. Motion to vote. Senator Zaki, motion to vote. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Senator Bakri. Yes, we can go ahead and vote. You guys can go ahead and sit back down. I apologize for calling you up. Okay, so I'm going to try my best to count. your placards. So please raise your placard very high. All in favor, please raise your placard. Oh, yes, thank you. Okay, yeah, 1 second. $24. Yes. 3 on Zoom, yeah. Okay, perfect. So 24 in favor, all opposed? Any abstentions? All right, seeing none, this passes 24-0-0. Good job, you guys. 27? No, that was 24, including the ones online, yes. Okay, perfect. Thank you, everyone. All right, moving on to form of concerns. Are there any additional form of concerns? Seeing none, moving on to postmortem. Thank you guys for coming in person tonight. It's so great to see your faces. If you guys have petitions that you want other people to sign, if you want, you can bring them up to the front after the meeting is done, and we can all like sign papers if you want that. I know that many of you are running again next year, so yeah. If we're all done, is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Senator Sedler. Is there a second? Seconded by Senator McMillan. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, I adjourn this meeting at 9:24 p.m. Okay, awesome.